we stand, in God we trust. There is no fear. United we stand, in God we trust. There is no fear. United we stand, in God we trust. There is no fear. There is no.
Friends, gamblers, and sports enthusiasts, it is time. It is finally time for a brand spanking new episode of Nall or Nuthin. I'm your host, Jason Nall, proud to join you again this week, however you may be consuming this program, whether it be on your FM dial on 101.3 The Buzz, right here in Cleveland, Tennessee, where we air every Thursday during drive time, or on the World Wide Web at WNWS TV, or maybe on our YouTube channel, Nall, that's Nall, or Nuthin, Nall or Nuthin, Nuthin. Glad to be with you again this week. We're going to look at everything through the lens of legalized sports gambling here in Tennessee. Big weekend ahead. We have the AFC and the NFC conference championships. We're down to the final four in the NFL. And then your host, Jason Nall, along with our contributors, Big Daddy C1000 and Badlands Brandon, we're going to take the lives and we're going to head west. We're going to Hot Springs, Arkansas, Oaklawn Racing and Gaming for the Rebel Stakes weekend. A little horse racing action for the boys, for the team, for the Nall or Nuthin team this weekend. Yes, 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 we practice what we preach. And we always try to catch a horse racing card throughout the year. And this year we're starting early, starting with a bang, and we're heading to Hot Springs. Let's bring Big Daddy C1000 on with us. Big Daddy, how was your divisional playoff round weekend? I know you finished strong with San Francisco, and I know you like Philadelphia. Was it a good weekend?
Yeah, it was a very good weekend. I mean, I filled up another boot. I mean, I'm running out of stuff to cram money in. I really had a great weekend. I went over to Southland to play them, and I really got a little gun shy. I didn't put as much as I wanted on Philly, but it still worked out okay because I had Philly and San Fran parlayed up. So it was a good weekend for sure.
Yeah, so I knew you liked Philly. I was on the opposite side of that one. It wasn't a good one for me. I liked the points and the Giants in that divisional matchup, but Philly, they just ran away from the get-go with that one.
Yeah, they were just much better. I mean, my buddy called me and says it's hard for an NFL team to beat the other one 3 times in a year, and he kind of spooked me a little, but he's a moron. I should have known better. I should have just stuck with my guns. But Philly was just better. It was that simple. The Giants beat up on some crummy teams and put up some points on Minnesota and looked good, but they really weren't as good as their record. They were very fortunate to even be there.
Yeah, and a lot of road games down the stretch for the Giants. There were plenty of reasons to like Philly. My thought of 2 weeks worth of rust was going to have to come off of Philadelphia. I was completely wrong there because they fired right out of the gate and took that game over in the first quarter, and it wasn't even really watchable. So then we finished strong with San Francisco over Dallas. I think we both liked that one. Dallas and Dak just couldn't get it done.
No, Dak kind of blew it, and Dallas maybe has their issues with him. But that Dallas defense put up a game effort. I mean, they really played good. You can't blame it on the Dallas defense. I mean, San Fran was held to 1 touchdown and 3 field goals. So, and 2 of those field goals were due to Dak's interception. So the defense gets an A+. It was the offense that stunk for Dallas.
I would agree with that. All right, let's talk about how we're going to run the show today. Our first segment here, we're going to do the good, the bad, and the ugly since we last met. Then we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little horse racing, talk about our upcoming weekend in Hot Springs, share some racing stories throughout the years that Big Daddy C and myself have in the vault. We'll come back. We'll discuss the divisional round that was last weekend, the playoffs, how we got from 8 to 4. And then we'll close out our program previewing and giving you some action to take and some predictions on these games for AFC and NFC championship weekend. Let's go to the good, the bad, and the ugly. the good Big Daddy C, I got to give it to Joe Cool, Joe Burrow. I said if the Bengals win, it's going to be because Joe Burrow put them on his shoulders. They had 3 offensive linemen they were missing, but man, they took it right to Buffalo on the road in Orchard Park in a snowstorm and just punched Buffalo right in the mouth. Buffalo looked lifeless, couldn't get back up off the mat after Cincinnati scored early, took a commanding lead, and they held them at arm's length the entire game. Joe Burrow looked like a world beater. For my money, Joe Burrow's the best quarterback in the NFL right now. What did you think about that beatdown, Big Daddy C? That beatdown that Cincinnati and Joe Burrow put on the Bills.
Yeah, well, I really got lucky in this one because if you remember on last week's show, I really couldn't make up my mind between Buffalo or Cincinnati. I was kind of on the fence. But when I got over there, I just kept looking at that and I said, to me, this is a coin flip. Either team could win. And I saw Cincinnati +6. I said, why in the world are they getting almost a touchdown when this is a coin flip game? And then I said, well, if I want to make some money and it's a coin flip game, why ain't I taking Cincinnati plus the 210? So I did talk myself into Cincinnati, which I'm very happy I did. I parlayed it with San Fran for a pretty good amount, which turned out nice for me. But yeah, it was just a total beatdown. I mean, Cincinnati just took over and just ran away with it. It was really a no sweater. It was a rocking chair.
Yeah, another year goes by and the Bills don't get a Super Bowl win. In fact, for the second year in a row, they go out in the divisional round. They were the heavy favorite coming into this year to be Super Bowl champs after they lost in overtime at Kansas City last year. Everybody felt like Buffalo had the team that could come back and control home field throughout the playoffs. They did get 2 home games. Had they won, they would be going to a neutral site in Atlanta because of the quirky schedule down the stretch with the canceled game. But they didn't make it that far, Big Daddy C. I'm going to say, even though they made it to the divisional round, you got to say it was a down year for the Bills. But the good, I'm giving right to my man, Joe Burrow, who got it handled on the road. And he's 3-0 against Patrick Mahomes. And now he'll play Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in Arrowhead. I can promise you one thing, they will not be scared. The good, Joe Cool, Joe Burrow. The bad, well, I got to give it to Dak Prescott. Last week we gave the good to the Dallas Cowboys and Dak because they beat up on Tom Brady in Tampa Bay, but Tampa Bay we knew was an inferior team with a losing record. They got up against a real defense in San Francisco, and they couldn't score. In fact, Dak turned it over 2 more times. Dak Prescott intercepted on his own end of the field early in the game, led to 3 points for San Francisco. Late in the second quarter, intercepted in the red zone, turning the ball over with a chance to take the lead, did Dak with another interception, and they never recovered from that. I'm just going to go out here and say it. Dak Prescott cannot win a Super Bowl for the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah, they may win a playoff game here and there, but he's not a confetti guy. He can't win the big one. And Dak is the future of Dallas, at least for the next 3 to 5 years because of the contract situation. Big Daddy C, well, he talked about it off air. I told you next year that Dallas had a $40 million liability for Dak on the salary cap, and it escalates from there. If they were to trade Dak to the Raiders or to Tampa Bay, both teams who look like they may be in need, or they're definitely in need of a quarterback, those teams would take an $80 million salary cap hit the first year to have Dak. He's not going anywhere, Big Daddy C. Is this it for Dak? Is this as far as he can take Dallas?
Well, I mean, I hate it. I like the guy. He came from Mississippi State. I mean, my dad likes Mississippi State. I like Dak, but he's just not the Super Bowl winning guy. I mean, that defense, you got to give it to the Dallas defense. They were strong. It was the offense that let them down in that game. But it was really a perfect scenario because just the week before, they had gotten booed and hissed, and Dak was talked about how awful he was, and then he throws for 4 touchdowns and runs for one of the only 4 quarterbacks in the NFL ever to do that. So all week Dak got told how great he is and how he's the next Joe Montana, and I mean his head got big. It was just a perfect setup for them to get beat. But I agree with you. He's not the guy. He's just not the Super Bowl winner. He might get you to the playoff game every year, but he's going to lose the playoff game for you every year. I hate it for Dallas. They're kind of stuck. They need to figure out something to do with him and get rid of him and get somebody in there that can win a Super Bowl for him.
He's at Big Daddy C1000 on Twitter. That's our Nall or Nuthin Twitter handle. Be sure to follow at Big Daddy C1000. Yeah, what a wild ride for Cowboys fans the last 3 weeks. They played their starters in the final week against Washington in what was a meaningless game, but they got blowed out by Washington. Even playing their starters looked terrible. All the talk was negative going into the playoffs. Then they had their best game of the year against Tampa. First time that Brady had lost to Dallas since wearing a Tampa uniform. But Dallas manhandled Tampa on the road, and you're right. All of a sudden, the stock for Dallas rose back up to the highest point of the entire year. And it was a setup job because they could not get a handle having to travel all the way across the country from Tampa to play San Francisco on a short week. And Dak, D-A-K-I-N-T, Dak with 2 more interceptions. 5 games missed this year due to injury for Dak, but he led the NFL in interceptions. The bad, Dak Prescott and his quarterback play in key situations for the Dallas Cowboys. And the ugly? Well, the ugly is always ugly this time of year. It's where you start to get sad. It's where you say, where did it all go? College football, well, that's all buttoned up and a bow put on it with Georgia winning the national championship in historic fashion with a beatdown on TCU. And now we're down to just 3 football games left before the long nuclear winter in between the Super Bowl and the end of August. Just 3 games left, Big Daddy C. Another fast football season. I will say, at least it has been a profitable one for the Nall or Nuthin team.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it really those last 6 or 7 weeks were really just incredible for me, and really it was Purdy. I got on San Fran and just rode them the last 6 or 7 weeks. It's been a great one, but it is truly sad. 3 games left. It's cold and everything outside is brown and dead. It's just a horrible time of year. But we can look. Spring's just around the corner, and then be preseason, and it'll be back here before we know it.
Well, let's hope so, because it is ugly when football is over and we just have 3 games left, albeit 3 big ones: AFC Championship, NFC Championship, and the Super Bowl. We're going to grab a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Nall or Nuthin. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It is Nall or Nuthin. I'm your host, Jason Nall. Glad to be with you again this week. Thanks for joining us on either 101.3 The Buzz on your FM dial or on Nall or Nuthin YouTube channel. That's NALLORNUTHIN. Or on the World Wide Web at WNWS TV. We are glad to be with you this week. Going to preview our Nall or Nuthin trip, myself with our sports handicapping contributors, Big Daddy C 1000 and Badlands Brandon, who is not with us on the show this week. He is still dealing with trying to get that house in order after the great flood of the early fall of 2022 down there in Olive Branch. Big Daddy C, this is our 2nd year in a row to go to Hot Springs. What you looking forward to doing once we get west of the Mississippi?
Well, I'm ready to try to hit one of those pick 4s or pick 5s and maybe bring home 20,000. I really want to shoot for something big, or maybe a big super, and maybe have it for $1 or $2. I want a big lick. I don't want those 1 to 9 chalk favorites. I'm looking for something long and something that'll pay, and maybe I get me a new truck or something. I'm looking for a long shot, something pays big.
I'm looking for a long shot too. Last year we had a chance, and if Badlands Brandon was on here, he'd remind you of that chance where you picked the long shot to win the stakes race when we were there. I think he was, I don't know, 60-1 or more, but we didn't have him on our pick
He
four ticket.
was 99-1.
99-1. You gave him to our buddy Sammy, who'd never been a horse race in his life. He thinks it's easy. 99-1 winners crossing the line. But on our ticket, we didn't have him.
No, I mean, unfortunately, on our pick 5, we didn't have him. I was lucky enough to back him up with 10 across and a few extra to place and show on him. So I did okay. It made my weekend. But yeah, it was a shame we didn't have him on that big ticket.
Yeah, it was a real shame we didn't have him there. But it was funny when you and Sammy were calling for him down the stretch, and I get right involved because I just assume he's on our ticket too. And I'm like, oh, we didn't have him. And you guys are hugging and happy. I'm a story of my life. I'm always on the outside looking in.
Yeah, it was a brutal beat for you. But next time, if I tell Sammy I like one that's 99-1, go up there and put your 5 across on him.
I will be sure to do that. So I'm looking forward to the nightlife too in Hot Springs. You know, the Ohio Club, which was Al Capone's hangout back in the early 1900s, when he'd come down, him and some of the other mobsters would come down to gamble in Hot Springs. It was kind of a off the radar spot for those Chicago mobsters. They dropped down to Hot Springs a couple of times a year, and Capone loved the Ohio Club. Not much has changed about the Ohio Club since the 1920s. It's got an old bar, and it's just a classic downtown setup there. I'm looking forward to having Toddy there at the Friday afternoon at the Ohio Club. We're going to pop over, have dinner downtown, and then maybe on Saturday night we'll go back to that roadhouse we went to where you were shooting pool and you thought it was getting a little dicey. You didn't like the fact that they made us go through a metal detector to get in that bar, did you?
I mean, the best way for y'all out there I can describe that place is walking through a metal detector into hell. I mean, the crowd was as rough as you could imagine. It looked like you were walking into maybe a state prison with lifers. I mean, it was just, it was so hot. I was sweating. I'd taken off everything, but I had a T-shirt on. I'd taken off everything. I was still just dripping sweat. It was so hot, just so rough. Metal detectors to get in. Yeah, it was an awful place.
It was great. And the band was great, a good old classic country band. It really reminded me of Roadhouse or Pokey's. If you'd come over here to my part of Tennessee, we'd go to Pokey's a few times. You'd be hardened to the bar life. Now, Pokey's doesn't require you to go through a metal detector as this bar did. I'll give you that. That was a little bit shocking there on the entrance. But, hey, I felt safe once we got in. We knew nobody had a shank.
Well, I can just tell you this. I've been to Pokey's, and Pokey's looks like a Southern Baptist church compared to that other place in Hot Springs.
All right, let's give them a couple of gambling stories. I'm going to start off with my favorite horse racing story of all time because, you know, it turned out to be a big winner for me. It's back in 2002. So let's turn that clock back 20 years. That was back when I was working at the University of Memphis and running the roads with my buddy Jason Owens and Rob Stumpy Paps and those guys, you and Artie, back during those days. And it was a Saturday morning, Kentucky Derby, and we're in the Kennel Club. I'm having my beans and greens I used to eat every Saturday morning over there, getting ready for the big race. Well, the Southland card, the Greyhound racing card, ran prior to the Kentucky Derby every year, and I had lost everything. I didn't have a nickel to bet the Derby, but I had thrown in $4 with Jason Owens hours before for him to bet a trifecta bet in a Kentucky Derby. Didn't even know what he bet. So it's race time for a Kentucky Derby, and all I've got is half of an $8 bet in a Kentucky Derby. He bet a trifecta partwheel, meaning he had 2 horses that could win, add 1 more horse with those 2 that could run second, and add 1 more horse with those 3 that could run third. So he had 4 horses total in the trifecta out of 20. So the chances of hitting something like that were, you know, astronomical. But it was 2002, and War Emblem had the 5-hole, and by darn, if Jason Owens didn't have that 5-horse War Emblem on the top of that trifecta partwheel, and War Emblem shot out of the gate, went to the front, and I'm thinking there's no chance I'm going to have a horse go box the wire in a Kentucky Derby. And they usually come thundering down the stretch. All the closers come flying, in that 20-horse field. But here we go. We come around the far turn. War Emblem, steady as can be. And it becomes evident with 50 yards to go in the race, he's going to win. And I start reaching for the ticket to see who the other pieces were to see if we had a chance. It runs 5, 13, 3 in that race. And by damn, if Jason Owens did not hit that trifecta on that $8 bet for us, paid, I looked it up this morning just because I wanted to be sure. It paid $18,373 with a 21-1 War Emblem on top. And so I went from having nothing to having half of $18,000. And that is my favorite horse racing story of all time. What about it, Big Daddy C? Do you remember that Kentucky Derby with War Emblem? Well, Big Daddy C says that was a big win, and he was happy for me. So yeah, so we go from having nothing to having $18,000 to split up between the two of us. I was exactly 30 years old then. $18,000 right now gets me very excited. At 30 years old, it got me over the top excited. And so, you know what? It was a huge day. Shout out to my buddy Owens, who knocked that big parlay down in the Kentucky Derby for us. Just a great day. My favorite Kentucky Derby memory, and I sure hope Big Daddy C and myself can have a day like that when we get to Hot Springs this weekend. We're going to grab another quick break. You're listening to Nall or Nothing. Welcome back. It's Nall or Nothing. I'm your host, Jason Nall. Glad to be with you again talking about sports betting. The legalized now sports betting going on our 4th year here in Tennessee with legalized sports betting. It's so good to be able to talk about sports through the lens of sports betting, and that's what we do here every week on Nall or Nothing. Not the best playoffs for me thus far. My picks I gave out last week, I got one of them home. It was my best bet, and that was San Francisco. The other bets though that I gave out that I was going to play last week didn't do so well. So I missed my parlay, I missed my teaser, but I did hit my straight up best bet on San Francisco. Looking back at the weekend that was, the divisional round, it all kicked off on Saturday afternoon with the Jaguars at the Chiefs. Chiefs let the Jaguars sneak back in late, kick a late field goal to cover the spread. The Jags were getting 8.5, and they lost by 7. The Chiefs are really good at winning but not covering, and last week was no exception. The big story out of this game, other than the Chiefs moving on and the Jaguars covering the spread, is the injury to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes with a high ankle sprain, missed a series. Chad Henne came in, the old Michigan quarterback, journeyman, NFL professional, real professional. Comes in cold off the bench. I don't know that he played a series all year for the Chiefs, and gets the ball on the 3-yard line after the Jags had punted and pinned them deep. Mahomes has gone now to the locker room to have x-rays on his ankle, which has hurt the previous series. And Mahomes is in the locker room. Chad Henne, a 97-yard touchdown drive to end the half. 97 yards. Wow. What a backup. What a professional to come in, be ready to go, know the playbook, not miss a beat. And that really just told Jacksonville it was all over. They never came back. They never really challenged other than the late field goal to cover the spread. So if you bet Jacksonville, you were happy. But if you were wanting Jacksonville to win that game and move on, it ended with that 97-yard drive of Chad Henne. So anyway, x-rays for Patrick Mahomes negative, but it is a high ankle sprain. He comes back and plays with limited mobility in the second half, and the Chiefs are able to move on. The next game on Saturday, the Giants and Eagles. Eagles in that midnight green on Saturday night in Philadelphia in the Link. They just took it to the Giants. Didn't matter if it was a divisional opponent. Didn't matter if they beat them twice already that year. The familiarity between the two didn't make a damn bit of difference. It was a blowout. Eagles early and often. Jalen hurt. There were some question marks around him. Was he hurt? Shoulder sprain. He came back, looked very effective, threw the ball really well, but most importantly was able to run the ball effectively. And that's such a big part of the Eagles' offense with the RPO, run pass option offense they run, is that Jalen Hurt be healthy enough to keep the defense honest with quarterback runs. He was able to do that against the Giants. Jalen Hurts looked really good and looked ready for prime time. Let's go to Sunday. Sunday opened it up with the Bengals and the Bills. Comes on television, and all of a sudden we see a snowstorm in western New York. That lake effect snow in Buffalo was coming down heavy. So you would think maybe that favors the Bills, being that they're the cold weather team. They're playing in their home stadium, but it didn't. The Bills were lifeless. They were really lifeless in this game. They looked like they'd ran up against a team that had their number, and the Bengals looked great. Joe Burrow takes the opening drive, goes down, scores 7 points, made it look pretty easy in the snow. Just some pinpoint passes, some lasers, and between Higgins and Joe Burrow, it wasn't a match. It really wasn't a match. They got ahead 14-0. The Bills were only able to score 10 points in the game, and again, just looked lifeless. They really did. Josh, the quarterback for the Bills, I mean, there was no life in him. He wasn't rallying the troops. You didn't see McDermott, the coach for the Bills, call a timeout, bring everybody in together and say, hey, we got to wake up. We got to get going. None of that. None of that. It was really just a start to finish stopping by the Cincinnati Bengals as a 5.5 by the time the game kicked off. A 5.5 road underdog. And what happens? Joe Burrow and the Bengals, they just keep winning. And they say, come on, keep doubting us. We love it when you doubt us. We'll get to it in a minute. But there's not much doubt behind Joe Burrow anymore heading into this week. Bengals win big. Blow out the Bills. And the nightcap on Sunday night to end the divisional round, Cowboys go out west. Just an iconic matchup. The Cowboys versus the San Francisco 49ers. So many times in my youth, in my teens and below, that was the big game. That was the playoff game in the 80s and the 90s. The Cowboys and the Niners. You can think about Dwight Clark catching Joe Montana's pass in the back of the end zone. That kind of cemented this rivalry as being an iconic NFC rivalry. But there were many more episodes throughout the 80s and 90s. They've met a few more times in the playoffs since then. But it's always a classic matchup when the Cowboys and the Niners get together. And this was a defensive duel. Your host, Jason Nall, I got on the under in the first half, under 23. It got there for us. I believe it was 9-6 at the end of the first half. They scored 15. Second half was more defense. Final score, 49ers 19, Cowboys 12. Cowboys had their chances. I mean, they had their chances, but they could not get the offense going. Dak Prescott, again, as mentioned in the first segment, 2 interceptions. One that led to a field goal by the 49ers. One in the 49ers red zone that kept the Cowboys from scoring. And that was the difference. The defense played great for the Cowboys. Christian McCaffrey banged up in this game, played situationally in the second half. Something to watch as we head into the championship weekend. Is Christian McCaffrey healthy enough to be a big part of the offensive package for the 49ers? A good defensive game. Cowboys had their chances. Quarterback not ready for the confetti. Dak Prescott couldn't deliver. Cowboys lose 19-12. Okay, that is a wrap on the divisional round last weekend. We're going to come back. We're going to jump into the AFC and the NFC championship, preview those games, and get you ready for championship weekend. You've caught Nall or Nuthin. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It is Nall or Nuthin, and we are heading into championship weekend, conference championship weekend, the final four of the NFL. I'm your host, Jason Nall. Glad to be back with you again this week. Talked a little bit earlier when we had Big Daddy C 1000 on. We got the crew, Big Daddy C, myself, and Badlands Brandon, all heading over to Hot Springs, Arkansas this weekend. We're going to Oaklawn Racing and Casino to hang for the weekend. We're taking the wives. We got dinner reservations Friday and Saturday night. We're going to cook big at our condo on the lake on Sunday afternoon and Sunday night and watch these games. Going to catch a couple of cards of horse racing. We've got reservations in the Finish Line restaurant there at Oaklawn, so we can hang out, have our drinks, have our food, watch the game, watch the races on the closed circuit TVs. But even cooler, just about 20 steps away from our seating, we can walk out the doors, stand on the finish line, watch those horses finish right in front of us. So a great setup coming this weekend at Oaklawn for the boys. But we'll be into our house that we've rented there on Lake Hamilton Sunday afternoon. We're going to eat big, have a few cocktails, and watch these championship games. They start at 3 o'clock Eastern this weekend, and we start with the San Francisco 49ers and the Philadelphia Eagles. You know what? I've told you before, I'm much better with the grind of the regular season. I like to see teams that, when they might be in a letdown spot, when they're in a spot where they might be up to play a certain opponent. So, I like the grind of the regular season best. However, we're going to try to pick these playoffs. I can tell you this much. I've had a decent football season. I hope to finish up strong here in the playoffs as well. Big Daddy C, he's really had a hot football season. But now, you got teams you played the week before that are matching up again, and you have to make these tough decisions. And this weekend is full of tough decisions. One of the things that we can look at is how close it is. So the 49ers, the Eagles, the Bengals, and the Chiefs are the Final Four. For the first time in over 45 years, there is not one team that is under $2 as the favorite to win the Super Bowl. The Chiefs at $2.40, the Bengals at $2.20, the Eagles at $2.40, and the 49ers at $3.20. That tells you it is wide open, especially between the Eagles, the Bengals, and the Chiefs. 49ers, the longest shot of the three, but just barely behind at a little over 3-1. So we're looking at a situation here where it can go any which way but loose in these playoff games. The first game, Niners at Eagles. The first question to me is, we got two unproven quarterbacks. We really do. We've got Brock Purdy, drafted dead last in last year's draft. The last player drafted in round 7, the third string quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. Due to injury midway through the season, Purdy became the starter. And what has he done since he became the starter? Brock Purdy has gone 7-0. The San Francisco 49ers have not missed a beat. Under Brock Purdy, arguably, the 49ers are playing their best football of the year. During that 7-0 run, Purdy won 2 playoff games. But they were both at home. Purdy has only played 2 road games during that 7-0 run. One at Seattle, and Seattle we know was an overachieving team, but went out to the 49ers in the first round of the playoffs, so he beat Seattle twice, Purdy did. And then the Raiders, at the Raiders. And by that point in the season, the Raiders were done. They had benched Derek Carr to keep him healthy so they could trade him in the offseason. And it was all over for the Raiders. So this is the first true road test for Brock Purdy. And it's a big test. Going into the link, going into Philadelphia, coming over to the East Coast. Purdy's never played an NFL game on the east of the Mississippi. Big test for him. All right, let's talk about the Eagles. Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, quarterback from Alabama, lost his job to Tua Tagovailoa, transferred out of Alabama, went to Oklahoma, set all kinds of passing records, had a great year at Oklahoma. The knock on Hurts is his accuracy with his passing. It's gotten better and better and better ever since he left Alabama. And now Jalen Hurts looks like a top, maybe even 10 quarterback in the league. Some people might argue top 5. Last year, Jalen Hurts lost his first-round playoff game on the road at Tampa Bay to the GOAT, Tom Brady. This year, they had a bye week after a great regular season and just absolutely stroked the Giants last week in his first playoff win as quarterback for the Eagles. Jalen was hurt down the stretch. Eagles looked pedestrian without Jalen Hurts. Now he's facing the best defense he's faced all year. No doubt to my mind that the 49ers and the Eagles had the best 2 defenses in the NFC, with Dallas being third. So now we've got 2 quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, who hasn't won the big game yet, but it's become highly regarded, and they probably feel like, most people probably feel like he can win the big game, especially at home. And Brock Purdy, the 3rd string quarterback, almost undrafted, last pick in NFL draft in 2022 from Iowa State, who's won 7 in a row in relief of Jimmy Garoppolo, who was in relief of Trey Lance for the 49ers. Eagles are a 2.5-point favorite. A little juice to that number. I saw it pop to 3 earlier this morning. You know, first instinct is, can Brock Purdy really win on the road? But it's really, you kind of look at it a little bit different than that. Is this 3rd string quarterback able to win on the road? Well, what can Kyle Shanahan do to make sure that the game is not decided by Brock Purdy's play? Kyle Shanahan, one of the best coaches in the NFL, a great offensive mind. This just shows you, with the 3rd string quarterback in there and San Francisco playing their best ball of the year, that it's definitely a system. If you think back all those years that Brady was in New England, they talked about the system. And was it Brady or was it the system? Was all of Brady's success due to Belichick's system? Well, here we go. This is another system. And this system has created consistency for the 49ers. And there they are, back in the NFC Championship game for the 2nd straight year, only 3 years removed from the Super Bowl under Kyle Shanahan. So with that, I think you throw out the Brock Purdy being a rookie. I think he's going to put Brock Purdy in the right situations. I think you throw out Brock Purdy being the 3rd string quarterback, because I think the system that Kyle Shanahan has can overcome. It's proven that. So now you're down to, what can Jalen Hurts do? Can Jalen Hurts expose this San Francisco defense, which has been so good? A healthy Jalen Hurts with a turnover-free game and a solid run-pass option game, I believe they can take the 49ers out at home. So I lean the Eagles because I believe their quarterback's going to be asked to be a playmaker, and they have the home field advantage. If you like the Eagles, you better get on them now because they're laying 2.5 early in the week. This line, I believe, is going to 3. It's bobbled to 3 already here early in the week. If you can find it at 2.5, if you want the Eagles, grab it. If you like the 49ers, you think their defense can keep it close and Kyle Shanahan can pull his coaching and offensive magic, I'd consider teasing them up. Teasing the 49ers up, taking 6 more points. Right now, you would have the 49ers plus 8.5 and say that nobody's going to blow that Niners defense out. They'll keep it close and maybe win. That's how I would play the Niners. Eagles, if you like them, I like them either on the money line or laying the 2.5. Niners, if you like them, tease them and find another game you want to pair that up with throughout the playoffs. Tough game. Could make arguments all day long for either side. Over under 45.5. 2 good defenses here. Typically in the playoffs, you lean under, but championship games have a history of going over, as do Super Bowls. So to me, that is a data-driven number there that's put up as a total in the game. It's a coin flip for me, too. I don't have an opinion on the over-under in this game at all, and I can't pick the side. I can just give you the advice that if you do like the Eagles, take them on the money line or try to get them while they're under a field goal, minus the 2.5 points. If you like the 49ers, tease them up through 3, through 7, through 8, and get them getting 8.5 or more in a teaser. Should be a great game on Sunday afternoon to kick off the championship weekend. We're going to grab one more quick break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the Bengals and the Chiefs. Welcome back. It's the final segment of Nall or Nuthin. I'm your host, Jason Nall. Glad to join you again this week. And we are breaking down the NFC and the AFC Conference Championship games. Just gave you my opinion on the 49ers and Eagles. Now it's time to jump into the Bengals and the Chiefs. I have not seen a line move this hard and this fast ever in the playoffs. In my 30 years of following this activity, I've never seen one move this fast. The game opened up with the Chiefs as a 3-point favorite. That lasted about 2 seconds. Immediately, they banged that number down, jumped hard on the Bengals, and that line went down to 2.5, and then the 2, and then the 1.5. Chiefs 1.5 point favorite. That stuck for an afternoon. Then Monday, boom, bang again. They're banging the Bengals. It's down to a 1 point favorite. By Tuesday, it had totally flipped. Or by Monday night, it had totally flipped. The Bengals now are a 1 point favorite. And by Tuesday, the Bengals are a 2 point favorite. 5 point swing in less than 36 hours in an NFL game is greatly unheard of. Give you a little information about this game. This is courtesy of VSIN. The pros and Joes seem to be united on Cincinnati. I don't know if I'm a pro or a Joe or a Mo, but I can tell you that when a line moves that hard, Vegas is running from it, and there is a lot of smart money on Cincinnati. They hit it hard. The Bengals are receiving 78% of the bets and 80% of the money, flipping from a short 3-point underdog to a 1 point, now 2 point road favorite. Over time, favorites have won roughly 70% of the time in conference championship games. And that's over the past 20 years. With Joe Burrow 3-0 against Kansas City, and Mahomes now limited with a high ankle sprain, it's hard not like the Bengals on the money line. So right now the Bengals are minus 130 on the money line. We've also seen some pro money hitting the under. So the over-under is 47. It opened at 50. It's been banged down to 47. The under's receiving 31% of the bets, but 48% of the money. A sharp under bet discrepancy. So more bets are going on the over because more people, the Joes, like to bet the over in games. Yet more money is going on the under. The pros are betting the under, figuring Mahomes' limited mobility is going to cause this game to be lower in scoring than expected. So I'll give you a quick my take. If I was Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs, what I would do before I break this game down. If I was Andy Reid, I would rest Mahomes. I would hope I would not put him out there on this high ankle sprain. I would put Chad Henne out there at quarterback, knowing you got a week to prepare Chad Henne. Chad Henne looked good when called upon with that great 97-yard touchdown drive against the Jags last week. And I'd roll the dice and say, I can win this game at home with my backup quarterback. The team's going to rally around this backup. They're going to prove that we're not a one-man show, that we can win when our leader, Patrick Mahomes, is injured. We can win under the leadership of our coaching staff, Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy, and our backup quarterback, Chad Henne. Here's why I'd do it. What's more important? Is it more important to get to the Super Bowl, or is it more important to win the Super Bowl? Because I do believe if Kansas City trots Mahomes out there in an immobile fashion where you can't see the Mahomes magic, and Mahomes is limited to being completely a pocket, drop back, 2-second, and get the ball out passer, I don't think they have a prayer to beat the Bengals. I don't think they have a chance. Let's just say they did. Somehow, some way, Joe Burrow turns the ball over 3 times. The offensive line doesn't play like they did in Buffalo, and he's harassed all day long. And somehow the Chiefs are able to win this game with an injured Mahomes being very limited. You're going to get the same situation with Mahomes being very limited again in the Super Bowl. And I think it would take a bad game and a fortunate game by the Chiefs for them to win with an injured Mahomes, as the line suggests, moving from the Chiefs a 3-point favorite to now Cincinnati a 2-point favorite. But I think if you put Henne out there, you're going to get a fired up team. They're going to rally around. They're going to say this is a team sport. We can win this. And you're going to get the best effort from that entire roster, that entire Chiefs roster. Andy Reid, if it doesn't work, if they lose by 2 touchdowns, having Chad Henne out there as a backup quarterback, will he get questioned for not playing Mahomes? A little bit. But when you're looking at the long-term career of someone, playing with a high ankle sprain is not an easy thing to do. You may not create more damage, but you might. You might, when you're favoring an ankle, have another injury. So I think he would get a pass on that due to player safety. But the bigger thing here is Andy Reid, his job is rock solid. There is not one coach in the NFL that is safer than Andy Reid. The culture he's built in Kansas City, the consistent winner he has in Kansas City, he's as safe as it gets as a head coach. And if it turns out that they get blown out, I still think it's the right decision by playing Chad Henne, because I think they would have got blown out as bad or worse with an injured Mahomes. And I don't think that anybody is going to overly question Andy Reid for that decision. But here's what happens. If they do win that game with Chad Henne, now Mahomes has had not 1, not 2, but 3 weeks to recover from the high ankle sprain because there's a gap. There's a week gap between the AFC NFC Championship games and the Super Bowl. You might get a Mahomes at 90% for the Super Bowl with 3 weeks to recover from that high ankle sprain. Ideally, you'd need a little more time than 3 weeks to recover from a high ankle sprain, but 3 weeks is a hell of a lot better than 6 days. So if they can pull off the win with the backup quarterback who looked good, looked like the veteran he is, looked like he knew the offense really well, if they can pull that off and get to the Super Bowl and give Mahomes 3 weeks worth of rest on that high ankle sprain, they might actually have a chance to beat the Eagles or beat the 49ers with their ace back in the hole. That's what I'd do. I'd play Henny. I'd play a healthy Henny. I'd have a game plan in for him to his strengths, and I'd give it all I got with my backup quarterback. We've already seen San Francisco, with the right system and the right game plan, has now gone 7-0 and won 2 playoff games with a third string quarterback. It can be done. That is the best move, I think, for the Chiefs to win the game, and definitely the best move for the Chiefs to have a chance to win the Super Bowl should they make it. For those reasons, it's very hard for me to handicap this game because, predictably, early in the week, Andy Reid has said the intention is for Mahomes to play. His mindset, speaking of Mahomes, according to Reid, is to play this weekend. That doesn't mean he's going to play, because they're going to say that to assure that the Bengals have to prepare for both quarterbacks. If Mahomes is in there, if Mahomes is mobile, if he's not, they have to prepare for the traditional Mahomes. They have to prepare for the pocket, quick release Mahomes, and then they have to prepare for Chad Henne. I think you wait till game time. All right, we're not going to run out and say, "Oh, the Bengals," or we're going to lay them -2. Afraid it's going to go to -3. It might go to -3. There's a lot of steam on these Bengals. And Joe Burrow, I wouldn't doubt him for anything. Man, that guy's tough. I think he's the best quarterback in the league, even better than a healthy Mahomes. I know he's better than Josh Allen. We proved that last week. And he's won the big games. He won them in college. He won a national championship at LSU. He won them in the NFL. Last year, when nobody thought he could, Joe Burrow led that team to the Super Bowl. And only because of some questionable short yardage calls did he not win the Super Bowl last year. Joe Burrow is a winner. We can't question that. So is Andy Reid. If Andy Reid makes the right decision here, and he trots Chad Henne out there instead of Mahomes, he may even get another point. He may get it to 3.5. He may get it to 4. Who knows? I'll take my chances. Not a huge bet. I'm not going to back up the Brinks armored truck to bet this game, but I'm going to bet it. If I see in pregame that Chad Henne is going to get the start, I'm going to take my chances that the Chiefs can get it done at home. They're not going to lose 3 straight to Joe Burrow, even with the backup quarterback. Over under 47. I don't have a beat on that. I don't know. Maybe in game, see how the game's flowing. I mean, I'm with the pros. If you have a limited Mahomes out there, then yeah, you want to take the under. But if you have a healthy Chad Henne and a healthy Joe Burrow, it's expected to be cold but clear, no wind issues in Kansas City. This can be a scoring game. Maybe look to get on that on the end game. Too many question marks in this one for me to make a big bet. Too many question marks in this one for me to have much conviction. But I'm telling you, I'm laying it out there what Andy Reid should do. And if Andy Reid does that and starts Chad Henne, I'm going to take the Chiefs at home getting whatever points they're getting, whether it be 2, 3, or 4. Back earlier, we talked about if you like the 49ers, maybe you would tease them. That would be a bad one. Tease the 49ers, pair them up with the Chiefs, especially if that line goes to 2.5 for Cincinnati. Boom. You got 8.5 points for the road team. I hope the defense can be there for the 49ers, and 8.5 points for the Chiefs and Andy Reid in Arrowhead. that would be the play I would make. If I like the 49ers, I would just say I'm going to have to pair it up with the Chiefs. I'm going to get the points in both the games, and we'll see what happens. Tough games to handicap, tough games to pick, lots of news throughout the week. The most important news is what Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs plan to do with Mahomes. Do they plan to play him in a limited capacity, or do they plan to put Chad Henne out with a game plan surrounded around him and see if the rest of the team can rally, support the backup quarterback, and get the huge win, beat Burrow for the first time in the last three starts, and get a win at home and go to the Super Bowl. Great drama, great games coming our way. There's some stuff to think about. You keep doing your own research. You'll find the angle. You'll find the play. Don't give up. Dig in. All right? Great games coming up. Enjoy championship weekend. Enjoy 2 of these last 3 football games of our year. We're heading to Hot Springs. I'm going to hope to come back with Big Daddy C with a boatload of money where he's hit us a pick 5 or a pick 6 or a big superfecta. And we're going to watch those games, eat and drink like kings, and just have a great time and enjoy what is left of football season. So until next time, on behalf of Big Daddy C1000, I'm your host, Jason Nall. It has absolutely been our pleasure. Enjoy Wild Card Weekend.
I said united we stand, in God we trust. There is no fear. United we stand, in God we trust. There is no fear. United we stand, in God we trust.